the Taliban is on social media and Donald Trump is not. What does that tell you about our social media giants?
Robert, it is a pure clown world, and Donald Trump is not on social media, notwithstanding the most recent developments in January 6th, which I guess is a good segue into our first subject of the evening. So I don't know if Alex Jones was specifically cleared because he had been accused of instigating or at least participating in, but the big bombshell of the week, I guess, FBI intelligence through anonymous sources familiar with the situation, yada, yada, yada. But it's Reuters, so it's mainstream, saying that they found basically no evidence of any concerted, colluded, organized effort to insurrect the government on January 6th. Some isolated cases, maybe 4 people here, 40 there, but by and large, no evidence of what the mainstream media had been running with since day one, the very same allegations that they sought to impeach Donald Trump a second time for. What do we make of this? Because I put out a tweet that said, the FBI now just jumping off this entirely. I get the impression they're doing it because what's going to come out is going to be not just that there was no coordination among the citizenry, but there might have been coordination among the informants or, what we've seen in the Whitmer case. What do you make of it?
So, I mean, they try to dump it on a Friday. So that's whenever you have an embarrassing story, the government tries to dump it on a Friday afternoon. And basically it was 2 things. One, it was that there was, as you note, there was no coordination, collusion, organizing effort. There was no insurrection. Stephen Colbert was busy comparing the people on January 6th to the Taliban. There was Richard Barris, speaking of polling, found that the District of Columbia, over 90% of the potential jurors in the District of Columbia have already presumed all of the defendants are guilty and believe they've committed crimes of insurrection and sedition, which they haven't even been accused of, and which the FBI this week made clear that was never the case. The second part, it shows how impossible that jury pool is, and hopefully the defense lawyers in that case will use the information that Barris has developed to move to transfer venue. But the second part of it was that they did, to my knowledge, they specifically cleared both Alex Jones and Roger Stone, said that there was nothing illegal either one of them had done. This was because this was clear from day one. Jones had tried to get people out, to get people away, had worked to rescue and defend those people, to save them from putting themselves in harm's way, had gone up to the people, the Capitol Police, had volunteered to go in to get people out. The Capitol Police chose not to act on that. If they had, probably more people would have been out. So it was always a ludicrous story, but it was one the Washington Post and the media kept recirculating. Alex Jones under investigation. Alex Jones. It was always false.
But what about I forget his last name now? Owen on the InfoWars has a warrant for his arrest, and he's going to turn himself in on Monday. I don't know what the warrant is for.
Well, it's revelatory. They knew that this cleared Alex Jones and Roger Stone, contrary to all the wacky, the Seth Abramsons and other wacky conspiracy theorists out there had this long extracted version that this was all a big plan involving Flynn and Stone and Jones and Trump. That was all put to rest. But you knew that they knew that was going to be the story, so they wanted to step on and bury that side of the story. So they brought a couple of minor misdemeanor charges against Owen Schroyer for standing outside the Capitol steps. I mean that's literally, and they're saying, and the only reason they did it is because they knew they had to clear publicly Alex Jones. So they wanted a media story to, hey, don't talk about Alex Jones being cleared. Talk about a InfoWars reporter, Owen Schroyer, being charged with misdemeanors, which is what the media did. The media pretended the Alex Jones story didn't happen. It pretended the Roger Stone story didn't happen, and instead put front and usually with misleading headlines like Reuters and AP and the rest of them. InfoWars reporter indicted on riot charges.
And now I guarantee you, if you Google those search terms, this story is going to pop up, and certainly not the exoneration or clearance of Alex Jones. It's a way to keep it at the head of the Google search results to keep promoting the narrative that you want to promote.
Precisely. And so, I mean, from my understanding, that the charges against Schroyer, aside from being minor misdemeanors, are factually wrong. And in fact, it wouldn't surprise me to see them dump the charges some months from now. Yeah. This was, I think, done for a media story. And I think Owen will hire some good counsel, and he can use it as a great opportunity to do the discovery that some of the January 6th defendants haven't yet pursued, including everything that went on that day, everything about the Capitol Police, everything about Pelosi and McConnell, everything about what the FBI 7th floor was doing, everything about what the QAnon story was. If I was Owen Schroyer, I would use this as an opportunity to get the real information and do some undercover reporting that he can only do now that he's a charged defendant. I think he probably will pursue that, and probably around the time the discovery is due, they'll drop the charges. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. He's already been selectively prosecuted before for just standing in the middle of the Capitol protesting, doing less activities than the Kavanaugh disruptors did by far. None of them paid more than a $50 fine and weren't criminally prosecuted at all. He was criminally prosecuted for that. So it's clear politicized targeting. It proves the Capitol Police are there to just cover up the corruption of the people they work for. There's other examples of that that I won't get into now, but that part of suits that I'm part of now. So I think it's a part of a pattern, but it's a purely political prosecution of Owen Schroyer that I don't think is factually well merited, that hopefully he uses as an opportunity to discover some truths the government's still trying to hide, which corresponds to the reason they may have sped up this disclosure, even though, the first ever hush-hush at vivabarneslaw.locals.com predicted all of this for the most part about January 6th. What the feds have now, I think the feds do not want more discovery into who was potentially involved in organizing efforts, because it likely will come back to the feds.
Now, I just want to say one thing. Is our locals chat not set up for this stream now?
Oh, sorry. Not yet.
Okay.
It'll be active after the show this time.
Okay. And by the way, so we're also simultaneously streaming on Rumble if anybody wants to watch it there. And we've been getting good numbers on Rumble, which is great to build up that platform as well. But, I've mentioned this. Karen Strahan, who comments a lot on the channel, made the astute observation that they don't want to release the 14,000 hours of footage because it might reveal something that they don't want to reveal. With the aggregate knowledge of the internet, if you can find some fisherman harassing Tucker Carlson in a fly fishing shop that he's related to intelligence within a matter of minutes, it would be a field day on this. And I suspect Owen Schroyer is going to have a sufficient amount of video evidence of his behavior and his conduct that day to be sufficiently exonerating. But like you say, they'll probably just drop the charges later on once the headlines have been run and the story's been buried. There was news on some of the defendants who have been since released, or was that not news since last week?
Not that I know of. I mean, they brought up some new claims against one person who it looked like was going to have a resolution, and that was delayed. But basically, nothing else really new on that front, other than more and more January 6th defendants keep firing John Pierce because they're discovering he's an idiot. He tried to join a bail motion of somebody else, which you can't do in the criminal case. I mean, the guy's a total moron, doesn't know what he's doing. And more defendants are recognizing that. And the people who've been busy promoting him should really start. They're going to have a long list of people to apologize for when this is all said and done.
Okay, so the bottom line now, FBI, or at least intelligence, is confirming no coordinated effort, minor, unrelated incidents of individuals, mostly misdemeanor. They have one person who's going to be sentenced to 8 months in jail for something that might have been more violent than what the other grannies and innocent people meandering through Capitol Hill, were guilty of. Not releasing the footage as of yet. And this is what's going to, January 6th is going to fizzle out into this. What started as and was promoted as something comparable to 9/11 is now fizzling out into this, and the media will never get over their initial trauma. And I've always wanted to say to people comparing this to 9/11, January 6th is to 9/11 what January 6th was to 9/11. I mean, these are things which only in the most dishonest, morally bankrupt mainstream media could anyone even compare these two events with any serious face, if only to try to create that narrative as opposed to actually reflect any semblance of reality. And it does a disservice to everybody. And so anyone doing it, I mean, it's a bad thing. Very bad.
And part of the reason, as Darren Beatty said, part of their reason probably for pursuing this is they don't want to go through what the Whitmer prosecutors are currently having to go through.
Well, good segue, Robert, and drag out the truth. Speaking of dragging out the truth, the longer the Whitmer prosecution goes on, the uglier it looks for the FBI and the prosecution.